Hello and welcome to a look at Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, for the Amiga, a game that was developed by Horrorsoft and released by Accolade. Before we get too far into the video, I should probably give a minor warning saying that due to the nature of this game, it can contain images that people might find upsetting, disturbing, disgusting, unpleasant, or perhaps even laughable. But whatever the case, a warning has hereby been given, so if you decide to watch the rest of the video, I will not be held accountable for however it may make you feel. Besides my commentary, of course, but I mean, that's a given. The plot behind this particular title is that Elvira has inherited a castle, more specifically Castle Kilbrackan in England. And while I suppose it is quite nifty inheriting a castle, unless of course you have to clean it, it doesn't come without a catch. It turns out that Elvira's great-great-grandmother was a bit of an unpleasant individual, to put it mildly. She had a certain desire in doing unpleasant things to innocent people, and it got even worse when her husband took off in order to solve business in other countries and left her alone for some years. That she invited a rather distinguished gentleman to live with her, a gentleman who was convinced that he was evil incarnate, so you can imagine that the local population was in for a treat. A very unpleasant one, but yeah. That, of course, is bad enough, but the problem is that Grandma Imelda apparently seems to be due for resurrection, and you can likely imagine that that is not a particularly clever thing, neither for the local population but also on a wider scale. So, Elvira manages to sneak out and post an ad in Witches Weekly, asking effectively for a Ghostbuster. The existing team wasn't available, so you decided to reply to that ad, and as you start the game, you will be standing outside Castle Kilbrackan. I should probably mention that Elvira finds it very impossible to move around in her own castle because of various different creatures roaming around and preventing her from doing much. Minor detail. The first thing that happens is when you enter the castle, you get approached by the guard captain, who will immediately say that you are a useless jerk and can't save Elvira and toss you in the dungeon. Well, thankfully for you, Elvira is available to help you out, and after berating you for being what the guard captain claimed, completely useless, she gives you a few items that can get you started and then sends you off to look for 6 keys, which will unlock a chest that contains a skull that can be the factor in whether Imelda's resurrection can take place or not. This game is a bit of an interesting concoction, I would say, because it is a horror-inspired adventure, but it is also a RPG-esque kind of thing, but it also has some real-time combat kind of thing, and it makes for an interesting amalgamation. Your character has various different stats. You have the strength, the resilience, dexterity, skill, live, and experience. The strength indicates how much you can carry and how much damage you can do in melee, and as you lose hit points, you will also be sapped for your strength. So you can be in a position where moving about can be very, very difficult, and if you start getting tired from carrying heavy loads, your strength will get sapped. Your resilience is directly a factor indicating how much damage you resist from attacks, and that is improved by spells, shields, and armor. Dexterity indicates how nifty you are, how quick you can act, and that is the predominant factor in who attacks first in combat situations. Skill is directly tied to whatever weapon you have equipped. As you use a certain weapon, you will improve your skill in using it, thankfully, and this skill stat will reflect that. Life is life force, and if it ever reaches 0, you will find yourself being decapitated and sent to either restart the game or reload the save game. The experience is a completion indicator, so if it reaches 99, then you have likely either completed the game or come even incredibly close to doing so. You have to navigate various different parts of the castle and some of the outskirts of the castle, solving problems, getting clues, and picking up reagents, ingredients for spells that the little Miss Elvira can cook up for you in order to give you some spells, which usually comes in potion bottle or food type or whatever that you have to consume. That will then give you a scold, and then you can use and trigger whatever spell effect. Some spells have one charge and others have multiple charges. It all depends on the individual spell. As you go along, you'll also be engaged in combat with various different creatures, ranging from soldiers to ghosts to skeletons to whatever it might be. And that is definitely one of the weaker aspects of the game, but I will come back to that once I reach my usual conclusion kind of thing at the back end of the video. From a graphical point of view, the scenario graphics are outright excellent in places, good in most places, but it flirts with excellent in certain other places, and you get a feeling of running around in a castle and its outskirts, and some of the horror element parts look perhaps a bit, compared to modern gaming, very simplistic, but depending on your stomach or lack of same for such things, you may find it unpleasant, spooky, or a giggle-worthy effort. I do find by and large that the graphics are good, even though some enemies are a bit out of place. Sound effects wise, there's not an awful lot of them. The main sound effect is the death rattle of enemies once you have beaten them in combat, and that sound effect even sounds incredibly similar to the death rattle used in Pool of Radiance. So I don't know whether it's just a stock sound effect that's been placed in the game. Whatever the case, the sound effects are forgettable. The music, though, is incredibly atmospheric and can be very, very eerie in a scenario appropriate way. Definitely gives you a sense of some things not being as they should be. And I will applaud the music for being outright excellent across the board. The controls of this game is entirely mouse driven, and the mouse feels a bit sluggish, to be honest. So while it is fairly accurate in and by itself, it can feel a bit wonky when you, in certain scenarios, have to activate an item in your inventory. And yeah, it's serviceable, but not much more beyond that. While the story in this game is interesting and intriguing, the game has a few issues that are complete stops for me. First and foremost, the combat, of which there can be quite a bit. It is basically a guess the attack and respond to it accordingly, hoping to gain initiative so you can beat your opponent to a pulp before it does that to you. Secondly, which is the much worse aspect I find, is the ingredient gathering. In order to gather ingredients, you basically need to click on every single pixel on every single scene in order to make absolutely sure that you don't miss anything that potentially can be converted into a spell that you may or may not find valuable or critical to have later on in the game. And it just drags everything down to an absolute crawl. Add to that the problems you are facing you usually experience by them killing you, so you have to work out why that happened and what you potentially can do to avoid such, which is something that people may find more or less frustrating. The diverse presence in this game, to me, it feels like Horrorsoft/Accolade was trying to turn her assets into their assets, and if such doesn't intrigue you, then her presence in the game is basically completely irrelevant. And finally, if you decide to play this game for yourself, do it from hard disk. 5 floppies, lots of disk swaps, and long load times does not make for an interesting experience. On that note, I will say thanks for watching, take care, see you next time. Bye bye for now.